Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Eugene, where empowered by love, we transform ourselves and our world. My name is Bob Surins and my pronouns are he and him. With me today is our Minister for Pastoral Care and Adult Faith Formation, Jennifer Hackett, our collaborative pianist, Suzanne Giordano, vocalist, Easy Kareka, and myself. And behind the scenes working tech is UUCE's Technical Communications Coordinator, Kat Johnson. We gather in worship to find meaning and to live more deeply. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to our better selves, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, we are glad you are here. If you are visiting us today, we'd love to hear from you and invite you to fill out the visitor form as you feel called. The link is being dropped into the chat now.
I'm delighted to welcome today Hudson, who will be reading for us our chalice lighting by the Reverend Scott Taylor, entitled Woven Anew.
Come with your joy, your incurable curiosity, your hunger for hope. But bring too your broken heart, your cracked confidence, your ruptured relationships. Let this, today, be a place of repair. May the words spoken become webbing, weaving again a path back to wisdom, back to forgotten worth, back to a place of peace, now buried by all the striving, worry, and wounds. May the sounds circling in this space sweep you up like a stream whose currents long to carry you home. And may the common breath, so sweetly shared between us, remind you that loneliness eventually lifts, that we are tethered more tightly than it sometimes seems, that together our hearts can mend, and our world can be woven anew. Come, let us begin.
Let us begin.
Come, all you wanderers, you lovers of leaving, come to this moment together. Set down the bags that you've been carrying, some packed to overflowing, some packed before you were born. Set down that baggage and be with us here today. Arrive here to this place where you are accepted, where you can belong. Come, whoever you are.
Our reading today is by G.E. Odell. We need one another when we mourn and would be comforted. We need one another when we are in trouble and afraid. We need one another in the hour of success, when we look for someone to share our triumphs. All our lives we are in need, and others are in need of us.
A series of fortunate events led my family on a budget to go on a road trip of a lifetime this summer in our new to us camper van. Between the stimulus checks and frugality in spending and the kindness of friends and family, we set off at the end of June and enjoyed that sweet window of visiting vaccinated family and friends safely. We learned many lessons along the way, and the first lesson is twofold. Number one, the further west you go, the larger the serving of ice cream will be. Also on the dessert notion, if you have ice cream o'clock every single day, no matter where you are in America, your shorts will not fit by the time you get home. These are just facts. I hope you can learn from my overindulgence and do better than I did. Still, you should try huckleberry ice cream. Our route was kind of a rectangle up from Tennessee through Indiana, Illinois, and Michigan, and then west through Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa, the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, and the apex of our trip, Eugene in mid-July. Which, by the way, when I came in June and my excitement to meet everyone and have live 3D meetings, I worked 80 hours in 1 week and I mostly forgot to look up. Thus, I was simply stunned in July to see the absolute beauty of Oregon. Holy land. How lucky you are to live there. Don't forget to look up today and take in the beauty around you. We stayed with family and friends and camped in our van all over, including various UU church parking lots. This experience of reaching out to UUs that I had never met before and explaining that I had just finished my ministerial internship and where I was heading. And by the way, can I sleep in your parking lot? It turned out to be a very connecting experience. I am, and you are, a part of a much bigger movement than just the 352 of us, plus staff and children and friends at UUCE. The different church architecture choices in each locale, the different parts of town where each church was situated was fascinating. And yet, the posters, the language, the messaging of our shared values, the chalices lighting the way for so many, well, we're all pretty much the same. The lesson for me was that we are not alone in this faith. It was good to sleep in UU parking lots. Another lesson that I learned is that it's not just camper vans and RVs who pull into Walmart parking lots to sleep for free each night. And I learned what it felt like to see people emerging from their non-camping vehicles, which were also their homes. America's Nomadland isn't just a terrific book and movie. Unhoused Americans are not just in tents in whatever green space they can find in Eugene. They are everywhere, living in their vehicles. We are a middle-class family, and a lot of times it feels like so many have so much more than us. But after this trip, I felt luckier than ever before. I have not just a vehicle I can sleep in, but a home as well. I also relearned the lesson of the importance of privileging loved ones. And by that, I mean giving them our time. Our beloveds, those people in our lives who make us whole people, who loved us through our snarky years and have patience while we continue to try to be our best selves, they're valuable, whether these people are related to you or if you have just chosen each other. The difference between post-Thanksgiving Zoom games and getting to hug one another in real life felt huge at the beginning of the pandemic. It still feels big now. Proximity and intimacy, though, do not have to be at odds, even though it's nice when we can have both. It was because we played Thanksgiving Zoom games that our in-person Family Day 2021 felt so natural, because we still were connected. It is worth it to figure out how to connect. Our theme at UUCE this month is cultivating relationship. Let's keep connecting in whatever ways we can during these ongoing strange times. Which brings me to our country divide. I was 38 years old and pregnant with my younger child when I had the realization that all of the world leaders, our Congress, the presidents of corporations, of countries, ministers of megachurches, people who share my values and people who don't, they were all just people. We're not so different from you and from me, except in position. So too are all of the people out on the road at the same time. We are people away from the place that we call home. We're all out to cultivate our relationships with our beloveds, and sometimes with others. And sometimes remembering that people are just people and not monsters is, well, put to the test. We were somewhere in the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, or it might have been Idaho, when we saw a billboard of a person ripping off their mask with the slogan, "Freedom is the cure." I'll tell you, it felt like a gut punch to all of my careful months of utilizing the always emerging science to stay safe and staying home and washing my hands and getting vaccinated and wearing a mask. It wasn't too far down the road from there when we reached one of those regions of the country where the only radio you can get is either livestock reports or conservative talk radio. Being not that interested in how many cows live out west, we decided to try out talk radio. I can't remember the last time I did this, if ever. So I was a bit shocked by what happened. The host reported his opinions as facts, then told us a story in which he was the hero, and then gave us all a call to action to do as he had done. The opinion facts were about COVID and masking. The story in which he was the hero involved him educating, this was his word, a TSA agent about all of our rights to not wear a mask at the airport or on airplanes. And his call to action was to ask all of us to do the same. So there I am in the front seat of the camper van, reacting out loud about the general badness of what I had just heard and realizing for the first time that progressives are listening to radio shows that report facts, and then totally separately, we are deciding what to do about those facts, maybe through actions via nonprofits or attending protests or through your church. And a lot of times, maybe even most of the time, momentum is lost when going from the first medium, the news, to the processing of it and the deciding what we think about it, and then figuring out what our action steps will be thereafter. Listeners to conservative radio are apparently getting one-stop shopping, where opinions are presented as facts, followed by a call to actions with instructions right then and there about what to do about it. The conservative crush in our society suddenly made sense to me, and I started spouting off about it. Which is when my spouse took what I can only describe as a marital risk. He said, "Well, they're in their echo chamber and you're in yours." I turned and I asked very calmly, "I am sure I'm remembering this correctly. What do you mean by that comment?" Well, unless I am taking confidential calls, my family does walk around the areas where I work, and apparently the gist of what we say about being a liberal faith with a progressive agenda to serve our world with justice at the forefront had been overheard. And I'm proud of that. It's how I want to live my life. And if you're here with us today, it's probably what you want too, or something very similar. And the guy on the radio was proud too. He's just people. And he and I disagree. And so there I am again at the crossroads of how to live out our faith every day, while bringing more people to see justice as I see it, while living into our first principle of promoting the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Every person? How seriously are we going to take this first principle by which we've covenanted to live our lives? Mile after mile, I pondered this, all the way down the Pacific coast, all the way east from LA, all the way to the Texas National Seashore, and all the way back up home again. I thought of it every day. I thought of it as I saw people and their masking behavior as the numbers began to rise again alarmingly, and we felt like the only family in America that knew we were in a pandemic. I called a trusted friend when I got home and I talked this through. how to move forward with this new understanding. We decided I'd have to chunk it. This is a term that the Navy SEALs use to get through hard missions. Don't imagine moving through the entire minefield. Just get safely to this rock, now safely to that tree, now 3 feet more this way. And in this way, the mission gets done. Thus, I made a commitment to my friend on the phone that very day to do one action toward understanding and being moderate while still living into my values, of somehow meeting even one person with whom I didn't agree in a place where I could describe as meeting in the middle and building relationship. Like in our story today, I wanted to find a polar bear and at least overcome my fear of him and work toward genuine relationship where we could reestablish some mutual respect. It did not take me long for this opportunity to chunk it to produce itself. That very day that I had the phone call making this commitment, my older son had a visit to his friend's scout troop. It was sort of a try it before you buy it night. My friend's dad took me along for the tour while the kids had their meeting, and I knew within 5 minutes that he would want to join. The other kids enfolded him quickly, and they began a meeting that was raucous and fun, and they still got stuff done while bursting into communal song every few minutes. Are you kidding? It was a fantastic example of welcome in action. I knew he'd want to be a part of it. We all long for belonging. I also knew that the friend's mother had steered clear of the troop for a reason she had only described in her text as sexist dads. So after seeing the scout barn with its knot tying posts and hearing about the wonders of the hiking trips to come, I asked what the tenor of the troop was. And the dad who was touring me around took a deep breath and said, well, there's some old-fashioned ideas around here from some of the other dads, but don't worry, our leadership and the scoutmaster and the treasurer, we're all kind of progressive. Well, that all sounds good, I said. Tell me about your wife's concerns. He sighed again, and he described to me the following. Well, scouting is a leadership program, and for example, one of the badges last spring involved the scouts learning to make dinner for us, the dads. And one of the dads said we should include the mothers, and it quickly became decided that the moms could, and I'm quoting here, bake us some pies and come and serve them after we've eaten and then clean up afterward. After I checked my watch to see what year it was, and then I checked his face to see if he at least looked pained by what he had just said, I told him that it was a lucky day that I had just hours ago committed to one action of building relationship where it was not comfortable for me to do so. For me, this troop was going to take a gigantic dose of second principle thinking in a teenager to promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. That this scout troop needs my Unitarian Universalist son to come in and live into his values, which are our values. He needs to live them quietly into being in that troop. That it will take a kid scratching his head and wondering aloud, as he did on the way home when I told him the story, if this is a leadership program, why are the scouts not baking the pies and cleaning up after themselves? Earlier, the choir sang Robert Frost's words about taking the road less traveled. I can honestly say that I do live in a very comfortable bubble. Nearly everyone I know well thinks and acts like me on this road that is my life path. I want to invite you to walk out into the rain and get muddy, to come dream this dream with me. In August, Rev Jen, when she was brand new, she talked about how often we think of the stranger by carrying pepper spray and how our lizard brains keep us away from dangerous unknowns. And She told us about opening up and cultivating relationship. And last week, if you came early to worship, before we start the recording at 10, we sometimes will show a video pertinent to the week. Our new interim director of faith formation for children and youth, Sarah, showed us a video of a kid talking to a former religious extremist. The former extremist said it was because people who believed differently than she did reached out in love that she was able to change her lifelong held views. It was through their commitment to love those strangers that she was able to love for the first time. Author Adrienne Marie Brown tells us, I think it is healing behavior to look at something so broken and see the possibility and the wholeness within it. I've been all over this great, big, broken country this summer. I want to invite us into healing behavior. Maybe you too would be willing to make a commitment to one action, to doing this courageous spiritual work of living into our principles. Invite someone to dream a dream with you through one action, living into these values that we share, even if it's a hard road to travel. For our joys on the road, and when we are able to be together with our beloveds and the guests among us. For all of our recoveries from illness and recoveries yet to come. For all of the joys and sorrows spoken aloud and those we still carry in our hearts today, we hold you. We pray for good things here and yet to come. Amen. May it be so. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we will carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our service is over. May you go forth down the road less traveled and begin your service renewed.